This was worse than my worst nightmare. I believed Cincinnati was better. I believed that my children would be safe. You see, we moved from Chicago to find safety in Ohio, and I believed so many things until my child was taken from me. I wanted to believe in the justice system. I wanted to believe in the police system. I wanted to believe in what America stood for, trust me. But when Roach was set free, I saw how America really viewed black people. And they keep asking me, why did my son run? If you were an African American male, you would run too. And does that mean my son should have lost his life? From generational fear that was embedded in his soul, that's why he ran. And that does not mean he needs to lose his life. And honestly, I was disappointed in the final verdict. But dwelling on it won't bring my son back. No, in no way is Timothy coming back. But he does live through us. You see, that's why we have these protests, surrounded in peace. I didn't want anyone to lose focus on what the real issues were, especially the issues of what's going on in our police department. Justice means just us. If you're a police officer, you have true justice. If you're not, then you don't. This situation will happen again and again unless something changes. Now, in no way am I judging Roach. That's not my place at all. I'll save that all for God. I hope and I pray that it's in His will. I hope and I pray that my son eventually gets this justice he deserves. Losing a child is the hardest thing a parent can go through. I was supposed to die before him, not the other way around. And my poor Timothy was just 19 years old. He only knew his son for 5 months, but his son will never know his father. And what am I supposed to tell my grandchild now? With all the media and his lies, how will he perceive his father? It's hard, I tell you. It's so hard. And I think of my son practically every second. And the grief is still so fresh. But God is still carrying me and my family, and I stay in a prayer, and I put my trust in God, and every day, that's how I make it through. That's how Timothy would have wanted it.
The shooting of Timothy Thomas was unfortunate. The police should not be subject to Monday morning quarterbacking. Their jobs aren't easy, and it is their ultimate job to protect the city from danger. The police get the bad guys, and it is my job to make sure those bad guys serve their rightful fate. I'd like to note that Thomas was wanted on 14 misdemeanor charges. He had a history of running from the police too. Now, Police Officer Roach's record was unblemished prior to this incident. Don't try to argue with me that those 14 misdemeanor charges were just traffic violations, because I'm aware. But you still got to come to court. And Thomas didn't. He had a warrant out for his arrest. His record was not unblemished. Now, I decided to acquit Mr. Roach of his charges because he was in a dangerous section of Cincinnati, and because Thomas was reaching for something in his pocket. Of course, no weapon was found, but it is still my job to step into each person's shoes. I understand why Roach did what he did. Now, like I said, it is a cop's duty to protect the city. And sometimes things happen, but this is not a race thing. This is a justice thing. And speaking of justice, I did give Roach misdemeanors for negligent homicide and obstruction of official business. But other than that, he was free to go. He's got to live with that for the rest of his life. So I think he's got to deal with it. And I will stay true to my decision.
You know, Timothy was something really special. I never met my dad for real. And Timothy was like this older male figure that I never had. We were only 3 years apart. I mean, I was only 16 when he died. He taught me how to be a man, a strong black man. He taught me that it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to show your feelings. Everybody else was just people I was meeting. But Timothy and I, we had a strong connection. And I felt lost after he was killed. I went down every single wrong road you could think of. I robbed people, I did drugs, I was in jail a few times too. I didn't even care about the wrong I was doing to myself, to my mom, and to Timothy too. I hated the police because they murdered my brother. I hated the police, man. They murdered my brother. That's what I used to think. It tore me up inside, and I was just so lost. So lost, man. I lost my brother. I lost my best friend. But something changed. Something changed inside me when two of my best friends, both black, were robbed. Robbed right in front of me. I was a witness, and the cops didn't care. They didn't see black. They just saw two men that were scared, hopeless. They didn't care. And as a husband and as a father now, I have learned to not judge. I can't let my children see me judging people because of their color, their skin, because of their title as an officer. You know, now I gotta be the role model. It's my time to be that person that somebody else looks up to. Because there are some good officers out there. But there are some who can't stand the sight to see your beautiful black skin. But I embrace the ones that are willing to help. And I enjoy going to church now too. It's actually really fun. And it gives me hope and positivity. I mean, man, you have people of different races worshiping the same God. Ain't that something? It's my safe zone. It's truly my home. And like I said, the world is wretched, and not everyone is willing to change. But starting that conversation up can begin with just one person.
It's my life's work, my calling. When we founded the Front, we really wanted to focus on getting justice for our black brothers and sisters. We had many fights in Cincinnati. It seemed like there was injustice everywhere we turned. The Front and I, we really wanted to bring hope to a hopeless community. From the picketing downtown to the protests in 2001, we wanted our community to know that we stood with them even when no one else did. Speaking of the protests and the riots, it all started on April 9th. It was after the City Hall meeting. They were withholding information from us about the shooting, and the citizens were just upset with that. The residents of over the Rhine, they would not accept that, and things got pretty violent that night. We ended up protesting, and the protest turned into a 3-day riot, and eventually, to end the riots, Mayor Lucan had to put out a city curfew, and that was to be from dusk to dawn. No one was to be on the streets. After the riots, Mayor Lucan, he put me on this CAN committee. It stands for Cincinnati Action Now, and through this committee, we really tried to address the issues of the riot, like the lack of jobs, the police brutality, the housing and neighborhood development, economic exclusion, and many things like that. We really focused on the root of the issue. I guess Lucan didn't like the way I did things. He took me off the panel on account of the boycotts. That didn't stop me though. I still worked with the Front, still had to fight for my people, and I'm going to continue to fight for my people.
What about my apartment? Is my apartment okay? That's all Chris was worried about as she lay in the hospital bed. She had just been attacked by one of the rioters. Apparently, they had been rioting to protest the way African Americans are treated in Cincinnati. They attribute everything to racism and police brutality, but they have not stopped to think about how they contribute to their own condition. Many of the 15 men that were shot were criminals. One of them shot his girlfriend's daughter and was about to attack the police. Do you think he was killed because he was black? I don't think so. Or the other two men who shot at the officers, do you think they were shot and killed because of their skin color? I don't think so. And do you think my friend Chris was attacked because she's white? I'll let you think about that one. When Chris got back to her apartment in over the Rhine, she had blacked out her windows because she was afraid that they would attack her because she was a white woman who was alone in her apartment. Do you think anyone should live in that type of fear? I don't think so. It had to come to this. It was bound to happen, though. The black community in Cincinnati, along with myself, well, we were really getting tired of the treatment of our black males. My nephew was killed by a police officer only months before Timothy was killed, and another black man before my nephew, and another black man before him, and the list just goes on. So I was not surprised by the riots. We were tired and we were angry. Unfortunately, the riots were the only thing that could make a change in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's priorities were all mixed up. They pour millions of dollars into a football stadium but do nothing for the residents. With the Black United Front and the March for Justice and the NAACP fighting hard for equality, Cincinnati knew they had to make a change. The protests and the boycotts, they were not going to stop just like the riots did. Back in 2001 at the Coors Light Festival, several restaurants shut down because they didn't want to serve black people. So the Black United Front, they organized a protest, a boycott, and I tell you what, in 2001, those restaurants were open and they were serving everybody. So see, the city will eventually have to listen to the people because they're going to lose their business from the boycotts. Because when you mess up the money flow, stop giving the businesses your money, it'll make them straighten out their priorities.
I remember one summer, I was coming home from college. I was pulled up by a police officer. I was doing a 40 and a 30, so I thought it was petty when he pulled me over, but I was speeding, so it was routine, but I just got nervous. Hands visible nervous. Don't look straight at the police officer. Yes or no sir type of nervous. A sit up straight type of nervous. And going up in Cincinnati, I was told to be careful around police officers. I was 7 years old when Timmy was murdered. And at 7 years old, my father sat me down and had a talk with me. He told me to never fear a police officer, but to let them know that you respect them, because if you don't go out of your way to show them that you respect them, it could cost you your life. And I didn't understand the weight of his words, and so I was pulled over that night, and my mind was so scattered. It was everywhere. I just kept thinking about all my friends and their stories about their run-ins with the police. Preston, one of my friends, was frisked outside his grandma's house, man, on the 4th of July, with the ribs and everything. My friend Mario was taken to jail and taunted because they thought that he looked like the guy they was looking for. Turns out, Mario looked nothing like that dude that they was looking for. They just wanted a reason to mess with him. Man, that summer was wild. The cop walked back over to my car, right? Boy, he called me. The man called me a boy. I was 21 years old. I was a man, legally. I couldn't react though. Don't never let them see you sweat. My father's voice was just in my head, telling me to be respectful. Yes, sir, Mr. Officer. What I had to tell him. Man, I was so nervous though. Almost dropped my license and registration. I wish I hadn't been so nervous though. But he probably wouldn't have taunted me if I wasn't nervous. When he came back to my car, he just started hitting me with a series of questions and just asking me serious stuff. Like, where are you going? What you been doing tonight? You out late? Did you leave a party? Have you been drinking? The questions came so fast and I couldn't answer them all. And I was just like, why? For a second, I thought he was going to make me blow through a breathalyzer or something.
It was crazy. I remember like relaxing mentally and physically when he drove away finally, like releasing a breath I didn't know I was holding in. If I had reacted, if I got mad at anything, who knows what would have happened that night. So I understand why Timothy ran. Because even when you do comply, certain officers will go out of their way to make you mad or to taunt you, to anger you. They'll accuse you of almost anything just so they can have a reason to pull the trigger.
It just went off. My gun just went off. Timothy Thomas was already wanted for multiple misdemeanors, 14 to be exact. He had a warrant for not appearing in court. He was not above the law. You see, I am the one who protects families and cities, and I am the one who is put in those dangerous situations every day and every night. So I ask you, what would you have done in my situation? 2 off-duty officers saw Thomas walking that dark and early morning. They simply called for backup. So myself and a dozen other officers came to their assistance. We chased after Thomas, but he wouldn't stop running. And he was already a runner. But I don't see why, because we were only trying to protect our city. He could have complied, but instead he kept running. So for 5 minutes, I myself chased Thomas down darkened streets, over fences, and behind abandoned buildings. And eventually, I cornered him in a dark alley. And I saw Thomas reach into his waistband, and that's when it happened. It just went off. And you know the awful part of it all? No weapon was ever found. But I swear, he was reaching for something. And so I asked you again, what would you have done in my situation? And do I think I got off easy? Of course not. Because that guilt will live with me forever, and I feel so bad about everything. And after the verdict, I just want to tell Miss Leisure, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about what happened to her son. I would give anything to change the outcome of what happened that night. But unfortunately, I cannot. I was just doing my duty as a police officer.